The following programme was made in conjunction with the Oil and Gas UK publication, Guidelines for the Safe Packing and Handling of Cargo to and from Offshore Locations. Cargo handling incidents are still responsible for many injuries, even though these guidelines have been in place for 10 years.
The most common safety hazards we have when shipping containers offshore is potential dropped objects.
What we've got here is a scaffold bracket that has come back in a container from offshore. Now, independent where the unit is, it does make it difficult for the offshore crew to actually see the top of the unit. Now, something like that, with the weight of it, a truck travelling at 50 miles per hour could cause some damage if it was to fall off into a car, into a windscreen or something like that. Because we've also got the hazard here where when they lift it off the vessel onto the quayside, it's getting lifted up 40-50 feet in the air. Now that's then still got the potential to fall off there and hit one of the crew. A lot of potential for injury there.
Dropped objects are a major cause of reported incidents on and offshore. But does it have to be this way? What safeguards are already in place?
Before putting a container out in hire, the first thing we would do is check the test plate to make sure that the date itself has got at least 30 days to run so that the customer can round trip his container offshore. We would also check that the markings here correspond with the markings on the test certificate themselves and also the markings that are stenciled on the unit. You've got your tare weight mark here, your payload and the gross weight of the container here. The most important thing here is that the markings on the sling ferrule itself correspond to the test certificate. The safe working load, the angle it operates at, the identification number and the most up-to-date inspection that has been done on the sling. You would check the master link for any wear, distortion, cracking or gouging. You would then be checking the thimble and the ferrule again for any distortion, cracking, stretching or wear. The wire itself would be checked for any breaks in the wire, any corrosion, any bad bends, any distortion. The quad assembly basically gets the same checks as the master link. The inside of the container, you'll be checking that your shelf pins are in place and secure. All your tie down points are in place and are operating. Take the door net out, check that your hooks are all in place and that your straps are operating. Make sure that the net has no punctures in it. Door seals are all in place so the container will not leak any water. You must make sure that inside the forklift tunnels that these are all clear, that there are no dropped objects at all.
So now that we have a safe container, how can we make sure that the equipment we put into it will make it to its destination in the same condition?
The starting point would be the oil and gas guidelines, and very importantly, each location needs to be treated independently and packed according to the requirements offshore. The Brent Delta location, for instance, we can see the Delta may have a capacity of 39 tonnes there, but another location may have a restriction for maybe 10 tonnes. So that gives an example for the guys here packing containers. Not every location is the same, and we must, respect each different client's or each different location's capabilities. You see, for instance, we've labelled up fragile according to the contents of the container. We've also, because it's over 25 kilograms, put a heavy label on there. The guys then employ the proper manual handling techniques and risk assess it accordingly. The key thing is not exporting risk from the base to the offshore location.
Some companies have even designed containers to handle specific goods.
This one here we've actually had designed and sectioned for the smaller pieces of equipment. Every section's got its own individual strapping point, so you're not strapping over sections. You've got one section, you'll just strap that section down. You've got another section, that will get strapped down. It makes it easier for us, and it also makes it easier for the guys that are backloading the equipment, because they'll see that section, that equipment can only fit in there. And they'll also strap that down and it'll be more secure coming back to us as well.
Well, this container is hired in specifically for the overdrive system, which is we get it all measured out to the correct sizes, so the tool that's in the basket actually sits correctly in the grooves, which then, once offshore, there's only one way they can unload and one way they can load it back, which makes it perfectly safe for us and for them. And plus, we pre-sling it before it goes out, so everything's ready for them. As soon as they drop it in the crane to lift this tool out, everything's there for them, and they only have to take off the straps and they can take the tool straight out the basket. Basically from here, depending on what company's hired it, it'll go down to one of the docks, then it'll be transported off the docks onto a boat and then sailed out to whatever rig it's been requested for. Everything's labelled up for the job, and then on the crane lift as it goes, we've got heavy lift pendants on it. When they take it to the docks, that tells them it's over 7 tonne in weight, same as when it's going out the rig. Crane operator on the rig, basically as soon as he lifts up his slings, the orange pendants show themselves. That operator then knows it's a heavy lift, it's over 7 tonne in weight, and then he can reset his crane to whatever he needs.
All loads must be handled correctly and safely, but are there any other ways in which we can ensure load safety?
This container, what we've got is we've got 6 ratchet straps securing the tong inside the container, and the reason we've got the 6 ratchet straps at the front, as you can see the 4 there, is so when it goes offshore, the offshore personnel don't have to climb inside the basket to release the ratchets. Everything's at arm's length for them. We've actually got an ATEX approved cover to prevent snagging. We used to use mesh netting where you have to tie it on the inside, and there was an incident offshore where the wire rope slipped down the side of it, and as they were lifting they caught the pipework and the valves. So with this cover there's no chance of the wire rope slipping down the side, therefore preventing any damage when lifting it offshore.
From time to time, urgently needed materials and equipment have to be sent by helicopter. But we should remember that there is of course a limit as to the size and weight of freight loads that can be man-handled in and out of a helicopter hold. Occasionally very heavy pieces of equipment are transported in the cabin, and sometimes this necessitates the removal of seats. This load weighs about 250 kilograms, and it's vital that these cargoes are properly secured. The consequences of something this heavy starting to move around the cabin would be disastrous.
This is what we're up against. Now this container's just been opened, and as you can see there's boxes stacked on top of a drum. Now, rough seas, that could have fallen onto the netting. The guys are going to open the door and that's going to fall on them. And also rolls of cable like this, that's just going to roll. Now there's no need for that. We've got 45-gallon drums, what's in them I would imagine oil, but all you've got is plastic banding to hold it. Well, again, if that moves, that's just going to snap.
This box here came in and one of these glass bottles had actually broken. As you probably can see, it's all over the box. It's actually a hazardous substance, so there was no dangerous goods note with it. It's supposed to be a dangerous goods declaration, but there was nothing to tell us it was hazardous or anything. So,
other than tie it down with proper strong straps, just put the net back, make sure that net's back. As you see, the net's laying down the side, no net, which is totally unacceptable.
What can we do to change this?
When they open the containers offshore, we don't want them to land on them, so a common tool that we use at the base is the cling film or the shrink wrap. Very simple, but it's just a means of consolidating packages, and the boxes won't have a chance to move or break, or again fall on someone when they get offshore. A mini container is the ideal for these 2 pallets. By the size of the container, the 2 pallets there's very little room for movement, so there's a natural securing device there already. Second securing, simply banding, using the various securing points which we see within the container and simply ratcheting it down and securing the cargo for going offshore. Hook on the cargo securing net. So if we can imagine the cargo is left Aberdeen in good condition, but for whatever reason through weather the cargo is moved, this net will then give some protection when the doors are opened, and any cargo which may potentially fall onto the gents offshore, it stops that happening. Once the doors are locked in position, it's an industry endorsed policy to put a 10mm tie wrap on. What it does is it keeps this latch in place during transit. It's also a visual that before it leaves the base, the guys know if that yellow tie wrap is on, the unit has been packed, it's been secured correctly, it's basically ready to go.
But it's not just packaging that can cause problems. What about uneven loads?
And certainly when they're coming over and trying to land them from a deck point of view, it can make the job 10 times harder. If the load was evenly spaced out, yeah, it makes it a lot simpler, a lot safer as well, you know.
When we get the cargo through here, it's got to be in a fit state to go offshore. Get everyone taking responsibility for doing the checks properly and reduce the potential for injury to personnel or the general public.
The oil and gas guidelines are there for outbound cargo and inbound cargo. Two sides of the journey, but both sides should be the same standard.
So we know that the containers themselves should be safe, and if packaged correctly, we shouldn't have a problem. But what happens next?
We'll know in 24 hours in advance that the cargo is going to be coming here. So when it comes up, we'll go up to the top of the gantry and we will look down on top of the units. We will check for the sling sets, make sure they're actually in place. Might seem silly, but sometimes they come without a sling set on. We'll check the slings to make sure they haven't been damaged. We'll check the shackles are in place and they're all the right type and the right rating. We'll also check to make sure our split pins in place. On the unit itself, you'll see the yellow labels and they have initials and the date in it. That's to say that's the person that's checked it. And the offshore side, they put on an orange label. By doing that, it's passing the onus back to the person who's done the check. It's made a big difference, and the quality checks now are far greater than they used to be. There's loads of different things that we need to look at on the vessels from the cargo side. We need to look at the actual weight of the cargo being put onto the vessel, where it's going to go then, because the offshore cranes have got a radius that they work to. The safe haven's on the vessel here, and that's the bits where a container, when they pick up in 3.5 metre swells, it can go underneath this side here and catch on there, and then it can get bounced about. It can cause a lot of damage to the vessel, it can cause damage to the unit itself, and it also puts the crew of the vessel in danger.
First thing we do when the containers come offshore is have a visual on it, make sure it's certified, it's not damaged, not rusty, doors are intact, seals are intact, and it's not been tampered with. And the lifting certs, they should all come with the lifting certification.
If I'm looking down on the boat from 100 feet, yeah, I can see the container, especially at night time when it's dark. You wouldn't know it wasn't strapped in properly until you bring it onto the rig. I can see it when I get up level to the crane. If that's the case, you usually have a safe landing area, just the handrail of the rig. You bring it onto the safe landing area and we'll secure it properly before we spot it wherever it's supposed to go on the rig. There has been a few incidents. I had one the other night actually, when I picked some casing up off the boat, and one end of the casing wasn't slung up properly. That came off subsequently, lifting it off the rig, off the boat, so I had to put it back down on the deck and tell the guys to unhook me, and that will go back to the beach and be slung up properly before it comes back out.
I have seen protectors fall from casing. Fortunately, it wasn't from any significant height, but yet the potential is there. It could have been 100 feet up in the air and fall, hits the boat and it could bounce anywhere.
DGs, dangerous goods, it's classed as DGs, everything's got to be labelled. And 99.9% they are labelled up correctly, we know what's in them. On the vessel, yes, you can't mix and match dangerous goods. It's all got to be segregated on the vessel for obvious reasons, explosion and corrosion and what have you. And when we bring it onto the installation, we have separate areas for segregation where we store these containers, explosives, radioactive stuff. We know where it is, so that's normally good.
But of course, the story doesn't end here. Just as much equipment has to go back to the beach as comes out, and it has to go back in the same safe and sound way.
The deck crew, they'll load containers up. Either myself or the crane operator will have a look, inspect it, make sure it's lashed in properly.
We try and load everything as equal as we can, as evenly as we can. When it comes to tying in, there's maybe one person, myself, and another guy will tie stuff in. At least that way there's two eyes on it. I might have missed something, they might have missed something.
Because it comes back on us, we are responsible for the packaging going back to shore.
That return journey requires a lot of input to get it right. They've still got to be packed and transported with all the care that was given to the load when it came out.
At the moment we're using ratchet straps, which they are good, you get some good tension on them, but we have requested a banding machine, which is what they use in the factories, what have you, and that's pretty secure when they're fastening properly. So that's what we're going to try and get out here.
We have got strapping machines, you can get them nice and tight. They don't quite have the same facilities as what they have on the beach, because obviously the space. We just try and manage as best as we can, yeah.
If it's special items, then we do try and keep the original packaging to be sent back, but sometimes that doesn't always work, so we have to make something else.
Or the boys who own the tools, they'll probably know the correct way of packing it.
It doesn't matter who we are, what we do, or where we stand in the chain. From warehouse to offshore and back, we have to think safety and get it right. Right down the line.